Well, let's get started. So again, our topic we're going to talk about is the second part of being able to simplify radicals and rationalize the denominator with radicals. So the last video we talked about when there was a single radical, and in this case we're going to talk about it when it's it has a whole number added to the radical. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the type of problem that we're going to be talking about today, again, the last time we talked about a single radical, now we're going to talk about when there's something that, so let me just give you a quick example here. It might be something if you have 2 over something like 2 plus the square root. Now you notice that now I have a value added to the square root of 5 or that radical on there. So it does look a little bit different. So let's talk about the word conjugate then. That's going to be our word. And so a conjugate, or two things that are conjugates, I should say, are if they have, and using generic vocabulary here, is if you have like a plus the square root of b, then its conjugate is going to be a minus the square root of b. Okay, a minus. And those are called conjugates. And again, the reasoning behind that is because when you multiply the conjugates, the radical cancel out. Okay. They're going to cancel out. And so we probably talked a little bit about back in when we did FOIL. And I'm just going to back up and just do a quick example. So if you'll remember when we took and we FOILed 2 things, and I'm going to pick like x plus 2 and x minus 2 as the 2 that I'm going to FOIL. Again, when I do first, I get x squared. I do outside, I get a negative 2x. Into x, and your last is a negative 4. And again, because of the fact that this is plus or minus, but everything else looks the same, what's going to happen is these are going to cancel. And in this case, you're only left with x squared minus 4. And remember that from Algebra 1. Okay? So that same concept is what we're using here with our conjugates. So let's go ahead and get started with our conjugate. Okay? So just like the last one where we had to multiply the numerator and denominator by the radical, we're going to do the same thing here, except this time we're multiplying it by the conjugate. Okay, so what you're going to see is the conjugate, which is in this case 2 minus the square root of 5, square root of 5. Okay, and so we're going to do a foiling. Okay, so I'm going to work down as we go through this. Now, work with the denominator. So I'm just going to rewrite this piece of it. Now, sometimes you'll want to go ahead and distribute it, but for now, I'm just going to rewrite it. So let's do FOIL. So first would be the 2 times 2. So that's going to be 4. My outside is the 2 times the negative square root of 5, which is a negative 2 square root of 5. My inside is the positive 2 times the positive square root of 5, so that would be a positive 2 square root of 5. Again, we're just remembering how we multiply. And then the last one, this kind of comes back from what we did last time. Square root of 5 is 5. Of course, there's a negative out in front, so that's going to be minus 5. Okay? So, next step on there, we're just going to simplify. So I am going to go ahead and distribute. So 2 times 3 is 6, minus, and then root of 5. Again, I'm just distributing. And the denominator, again, these are going to cancel. That's what we wanted to do. If that doesn't happen, you know you can, that's the whole purpose of doing this, is to get those radicals to cancel. And then here we have 4 minus 5, which is actually a negative 1. Okay? And you can leave it like that. That's the way to leave it. So normally what you would see then is that we would go ahead and multiply through or divide negative 1. So let's just go ahead and divide by the negative 1. So 6 divided by a negative 1 would be a negative 6. A negative 3 divided by a negative 1 is a positive 3. And then again, minus the square root of 5. And that was the final answer there. So check a look at that. See what you think on that. Again, foiling and being sure that your radicals do cancel out. Let's write some steps out. So, number 1, first you need to do the conjugate. of denominator. Okay, that's going to be your first thing. Find the conjugate of your denominator. Number 2, you need to multiply both numerator and the denominator, keep running over, by the conjugate. Okay, and the last step again is to simplify by multiplication, which will always be FOIL in the denominator, but may be distributive property numerator on that. Okay, myself around here. So that is a quick example. We're going to run through a couple more here for on there and show you what we're going to be doing. So be sure you have your steps and your example all copied down in your notes. Continue on the video. So push the pause and get things copied down. Okay, so I'm going to run through these and give you just a couple of more examples to look at. Okay, so the first one is very similar to the one that we did already. Again, the first step is to find your conjugate. So in this case, it is going to be 3 minus the square root of 5. Again, remember the only thing that's different is the negative there. Now, this is going to be a multiplication. Be sure your parentheses do go around the entire thing there. And also, you must multiply your numerator by your conjugate. Okay, first step. Now, next step, again, I'm going to go ahead and just leave numerator alone right now. And I might tell you sometimes it is best to just wait. And sometimes it's best to multiply out. So it really just varies on that, on the numerator part of it. So let's go ahead and FOIL your denominator. And 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times a negative square root of 5 would be a negative 3 square root of 5. 3 times a positive square root of 5 would be 3 times positive square root of 5. And then your last would be a negative square root of 5 times square root of 5, which would be 5. Okay. Again, I'm just going to do a quick simplification. And my radicals are going to cancel. Again, that's the purpose of this. 9 minus 5 is 4. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you why you might want to wait to do your distributing. Now, if it is a FOILing on the top like the next one is going to be, you're going to want to go ahead and FOIL it out. But if this is just a distributive property like this one, okay, you're going to want to kind of hold off because it's possible once you're done that those two numbers, again, will reduce like what we saw earlier. And we know that 2 over 4 is actually 1/2. Okay, and so, again, that's just going to simplify to 3 minus the square root of 5 over 2. Final answer. So, again, any questions about that, be sure you ask. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Again, the same thing. We're just going to find our conjugate. So it is going to be 5 minus the square root of 3. Same thing here. 5 minus the square root of 3. Talking about getting in the right spot, be sure your parentheses are around each of your binomials. And I'm just going to go underneath here and continue my problem. So I need to, in this case, FOIL both the numerator and the denominator. So this is going to be just a little bit longer. So let's start with the numerator. So 7 times 5 would be 35. The 7 times the, I'm doing the outside, so 7 times the negative square root of 3 would be 7 square root of 3, negative. 5 times the square root of 3, negative also. And then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. And then the two negatives make that positive. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to do my denominator. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times a negative 3 square root of 3 would be a negative 5 square root of 3. Inside, 5 times the square root of 3. Last would be the negative square root of 3 times square root of 3, which is 3. Okay. Now, I want to simplify both the numerator and the denominator by adding my like terms. So let's just do a quick remembrance here. I have the 35 and the 3 are going to be like terms. Okay, and I have the square roots are going to be like terms. Same thing as in the denominator. Okay, so let's go ahead and 35 plus 3 would be 38. Okay, I'm going to shorten up my stick here. I don't need that long. And then a negative 7 square root of 3 and a negative 5 square root of 3 would be a negative 12 square root of 3. Okay. Next, do the denominator. So 25 minus 3 would be 22. And then again, these cancel out. Okay, looks good. Now, one step you need to pay attention to, okay, very important step, is when I'm looking at this, one thing I should notice is that, and that's kind of hard to see, let me get you a little bit better, maybe highlighting color. Nope, that doesn't work any better. On this green, the highlighting colors don't work very well. Let's just go back with this. So one of the things is that this 38, this 12, now I'm not looking at the radical, I'm looking at the whole numbers. Those 3 whole numbers actually all contain a 2, okay, a common denominator, a common factor, I should say, not a denominator, a common factor, a 2. And so I can actually factor out a 2 out of everything. So watch what I do. I'm going to put a 2 out in front, factoring out a 2, I'm just taking out the 2. So if I take 38 and divide it by 2, I get 19. If I take 12 and divide it by 2, I get 6. Square root of 3 still left. I'm not even going to mess with the radical piece of it. And if I take a 2 out of 22, I have an 11 left over. And so now I have these 2 2's. 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So those, in fact, will cancel out. And all I'm going to be left with, I wrote too big, is 19. I'm going to come over here. Well, where do I want to go? Here we go. 19 minus 6 square root of 3 over 11. Final answer. Okay? So again, that's some simplification that can take place, and we'll talk about that, and we'll work more of those in class. So just to be aware of, once you're done doing your conjugate, doing your multiplication, you still might be able to do a little bit of reducing on there. So again, don't stress over it too much. We're going to be doing these in class. You're going to see a lot of them before we're done. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever or anything that I've covered, please make a note and do not hesitate to ask in class. Again, this was just a quick preview of what you're going to see in class next class period.